So, my digital memoir is going to be on my generation and how we're trying to make changes and how we're stepping up as a generation. It's going to be about the Parkland shooting. And for those of you who don't know, the shooting happened on February 14th, 2018. 17 people died, 14 were wounded, and 5 had life threatening injuries. It was one of the biggest shootings, like in a school, to happen. Nicholas Cruz, who was a former student, was the one who did the shooting, and he used an AR-15. The fire alarm was pulled around the same time the shots were fired, and the shooter shot into multiple classrooms. And the way that this kind of ties back to me in a way is that my roommate went to Parkland, so she tells us some of the stuff about it and everything, and so that's how it relates back to me. So, how our generation is stepping up is that Emma Gonzalez, Sarah Chadwick, David Hogg, Jacqueline Corin, Cameron Caskey, and Alex Wynn were all students at Parkland, and they decided that they were going to step up and try and make a change and make it stop. Emma had no Twitter at first, and within 11 days, she had more followers than the NRA, which is like the gun association that's for guns and gun rights. Their movement called for specific changes like renewed assault weapons ban, universal background checks, and digitalized gun ownership. The hashtag Never Again movement was started by the 11th grader Cameron Caskey to try and start the movement. And here's a picture of all of them. Since those students stepped up, one of the big events that happened was on March 14th, nearly 1 million kids across the country left class for the National School Walkout to protest against the school shooting epidemic. And I remember my school was actually a part of this, and I know a lot of my other teammates who went to different schools, even in different states, said that their school also did the National School Walkout. After the shooting, support for stronger gun regulations spiked to 68% after the shootings, which was up from 60% last November, according to Politico/Morning Consult survey. Public support for the NRA was down 37%, according to a WSJ and NBC poll, the first time since 2000 that the organization has been viewed more negatively than positively. Companies from Delta Airlines to Hertz to MetLife cut ties with the NRA. Dick's Sporting Goods announced it would stop carrying assault weapons. Florida, which was known for having soft gun policies, passed a bill on March 9th that bans bump stocks and imposed a waiting period, raised the minimum age to buy a weapon, and allows cops to take guns from the mentally ill. And 67 NRA-endorsed Republicans voted for this bill, and the gun-friendly GOP Senator Scott actually signed the bill. Back to the kids. They started March for Our Lives, and March for Our Lives is the fight for universal background checks. That is the most important part of it, to fight the gun violence. And this year, they helped introduce federal legislation to make sure everybody is checked before buying a deadly firearm. So the main parts that March for Our Lives fights against is funding gun violence, eliminate absurd restrictions on the ATF, universal background checks, high-capacity magazine ban, limit firing power on the streets, funding for intervention programs, extreme risk protection orders, disarming all domestic abusers, gun trafficking, safe storage, and mandatory theft reporting. Like I said earlier, the students organized March for Our Lives, and March for Our Lives is one of the biggest demonstrations in history. And not just Parkland students got involved for March of Our Lives, there are many students who also got involved with it. They also held a gun control rally in Tennessee where Sarah, one of the girls who was very invested in making a change, said, "Never again should a child be afraid to go to school. Never again should students have to protest for their lives." And I thought that was really strong, and that really hit me because I'm going to be a future educator, and it does scare me that sometimes that kids have to have a fear of going to school and someone coming in and shooting them, and that really spoke to me. And lastly, one of the things that these students did was they wrote a book, Glimmer of Hope, and 100% of the proceeds of the book are being donated to March for Our Lives Foundation in the ongoing fight to end gun violence in the U.S. So, all in all, I thought with these kids, What Emma, Sarah, David, Jacqueline, Cameron, and Alex did was amazing. They really stepped up and tried to start a movement, and hopefully, if we all keep pursuing, we can get stricter gun laws and hopefully have the end or minimize school shootings.